Welcome back to No Wooden Nickels, because they don't spin. Alright, so my content's for educational purposes only. Can't stress enough for you guys to do your own research. Praise my content, throw any errors you find in the comments. None of us have been alive long enough to know all that transpired in the past, and none of us can live long enough to know all there is to learn. Alright, so um, today's video is going to be based on spiritual awareness. I understand that a lot of us are not aware of spirituality in general. A lot of us remain in the realm of religion and also continue to suffer the colonization and indoctrination of our minds by those who oppose us. I'm also aware that a lot of people look at people like myself sideways when we get to talking about things that we know based off of study and research. Because of their lack of study and research. Also, as a result of their cognitive dissonance. Another reason why a lot of people are stuck in the limited scope of knowledge and open-mindedness is because, a lot of us, instead of doing the work, doing the leg work necessary to expand the scope of our knowledge and consciousness, that as a result, we remain limited, mentally limited, and have the incapacity to think outside of the box, because those who fit the categorization that I just spoke about do not realize, or they are afraid of, either you don't know that there is life, knowledge, and existence beyond the square, of knowledge that has been given via the curriculums that have been in society for about the last 100 years. And, also as a result of the aforementioned, the colonization, the indoctrination, the mind control practices via having control of all of the, or not all of it, but essentially all of the information. And those of us that blindly follow whatever it is that we're given and subscribe to what we're given as truth. And as a result of such, base our lives around that supposed truth without any appraisal. Why do I say this? Okay. first of all, a lot of the things, based on my research and study, a lot of the things that have transpired or taken place to initiate the changes in society, around society, have taken place, I would say about 10 decades ago. So the fact that, a lot of the practices and the implemented experimental implications on this society, a person that is not or has not or was not around during said changes will most often surmise or assume that this is just the way things are. Or they subscribe to the position that, ain't nobody done nothing to me. I wasn't around. Ain't nobody done nothing to me. etc. Well, on the surface level, no. If all I knew about was surface level shit, then I would more than likely be from the same position. However, I'm a critical thinker. So surface level shit will never do for someone of my cerebral caliber. And, anybody that's triggered by that, that's a you problem, not a me problem. We all have the same 8 hours in a day. However, let me bring the intro that I chose to initiate this video on full circle. Along with the things that I've already mentioned, a lot of us have no idea about spirituality. A lot of us have no idea about the word escapes me, so I'm looking at my library to locate the word, because I have all the titles facing me. Astrology. A lot of us have no knowledge of astrology beyond horoscopes. As I've mentioned so many times in the past on these videos, astrology is directly linked and related to astronomy. They are both in turn related to cosmology. Ironic as it is, I remember when I took Shahada, and I've mentioned this story again, but I'm going to reiterate that. First thing I was told, once the person that tablighed me said, once he knew that I was ready to take Shahada, hey man, I noticed you into those horoscopes, man. You got to leave that alone. Anybody that has chosen Islam as their school of information, a school of thought, to base their knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in within, and place their faith, belief, and hope and trust behind and in, have heard the same thing. Reason why that's relevant to this afternoon's title is the fact that they'll have you believe that history only goes 25 to 6,000 years in the past. A lot of us also do not understand what is that? Etymology. How to fully and completely understand words that we use and are confronted with in this language. History in general, his story, okay? Anybody that knows anything about war knows that at the conclusion of every war, there is the booty. I know they have us far removed from the aspect of war beyond what the United States Incorporated indulges in, although they don't teach you the inner workings of it. So a lot of people, although they are aware or have read it or come across it during their schooling, that at the conclusion of every war, there's only one victor, and to the victor goes the spoils. So that means the women, the raw materials, the land, the structures, and everything else on that and in that land. Along with those that I just mentioned goes the rewriting of said his story. So with that being stated, knowing that our ancestors were and have been out of power since, depending on your knowledge base, it would either be the late 1400s or the early 1600s. To continue on, if not many, hardly any of us have been around the last 10 decades, it's fairly safe to assume that none of us have been around for the last 4 centuries. So that in and of itself, in a nutshell, is why a critical analysis and study of world history is essential, if not mandatory, in order for one to have a realistic equilibrium in today's society. A lot of us, based on being inducted into religion, have little if any exposure to spiritual law, universal law. Both are just a group of laws that revolve around energy, and anybody that is aware of the scientific aspect of energy. Energy is all. No, not all, but energy is, everything is energy. And energy does not die. It cannot die. It can only transform and transfer. So this is where, things like the law of compensation, the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, etc. This is where all these things come from, because the universe operates based upon laws and principles. So, without a foundational, fundamental inner and overstanding of spiritual and universal law, a person is limited via their understanding. Not a shot, not a knock for nobody. It's just what it is. It's just a fact. This is one of the reasons why in my previous portion in this introduction about history, this is why we no longer have civics in school. Because if civics were properly taught, or taught at all, it would give up secrets as to who we are, where we come from, etc. The fact that it has been taken out, just like certain books in the Bible have been taken out, signifies to me that things have been changed from its original state. Just with that being a fact, compelled me to do extensive research on the origin of things. This is where I started my quest for knowledge. Post-initiation of said quest for knowledge, I began discovering a lot of things relevant to things being changed from their original version, which led me to not only having a library as well as a law library. It also led me to, after consuming and retaining to memory, and as a result of such, changing my perception and views on society and reality as a whole. Consequently, when your views change, the way you deal with things change, the way you act and carry yourself change as a result of it. So, spiritual and universal law. All right. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has its cause. So, not to mention, you have people that are on different levels as it relates to gifts and talents and skills. Why is that relevant? Because I'm going to make an educated assumption that everybody has heard of what is referred to as witches, warlocks, and all that shit there. If I've lost anybody with the mention of that, just do some research. That's all you got to do. Anyway, um, there is duality in everything. So you have dark witches, dark warlocks, and light witches and light warlocks, meaning the dark is associated with negativity, evil, um, treachery, deceit, technology, etc. And the equal opposite of which is attributed to the light side of it. Upon my research and study of the aforementioned, it allowed me to come to the realization of the causes of some of what has befell me or befallen me in this lifetime. Naturally, I continue to learn and seek knowledge in a lot of different, topics regarding such. And with those realizations, also led me to delve further into what are known as the sciences. And what I've learned is everything has an order, harmony, i.e., harmony must be established, will be established by any means, as well as justice. So, this is what has led me to changing the way I live, the way I deal with people, the reasons why I deal with people, the way I deal with them. And another reason why I do things the way I do things and deal with people the way I deal with things is because all my life I realized certain things about myself. Always been highly sensitive to energy. I could always feel somebody's temperature as far as their ego state, their emotional state. Whether they were mad, upset, angry, happy, whether they had, good or bad intentions. And for a large part of my life, I recognized it because I couldn't help it. Your body, anybody that knows about an empath or anybody that's empathic, they understand. If you know, you know. If you don't, then learn a little something from this video. But for a large part of my life, I ignored that which was easy for me to ignore. Other things that weren't, I dealt with. But trial and error, and through testing and measuring, I realized that whenever I chose to ignore it, it landed me in a compromising, at the least, position. And I always had to work through consequences of ignoring said signs and energetic nudges and the I guess if you watch the movie Spider-Man, and you will better understand. That's the best analogy I can give you. When his spider senses or his spidey senses get to activating or tingling, I learned to pay attention to these things, and as a result of me paying attention to these things, life has gotten better for me. You feel things that you feel for a reason. Only when you ignore it is how you find yourself or land into some sort of trouble. So, then you have, let me touch on astrology, astronomy, and cosmology again. First of all religion comes from cosmology because in ancient times, our ancestors taught children about the cosmos in human form, in story form, so that way they could grasp it mentally. But once they attained a certain age and maturity, they gave them the sciences. To back that statement up, you have the mystic system, which was 20 years long. You have people like Plato's, Socrates, and all of those so-called greats. They all had teachers. And not many of them finished the 20-year curriculum. So they were left with a limited knowledge base and understanding of that system. And not only that, they were not of the same genetic makeup of our ancestors. Only reason why that's important is because, as I've mentioned before, you have sun people and you have ice people. As it relates to the lifestyle and the habits of either, that should be self-explanatory. If not, then you research it for yourself. It's not my duty wish or task to convince anybody of anything. So I'm not. Moving on. Anyway, people used to travel from all over, far and wide, near, and short, to sit at the feet of our ancestors who were the scholars. And they took that knowledge back to, where they were from, and conveyed and or expounded on said knowledge in their hometowns or, where they originated from. But back to energy. There are all different types of empaths. There are all different types of energies. You have the seen and the unseen. You have, within those two spectrums, there is a plethora of awareness to be gained. And, depending on, the individual, how they were constructed, what was meant for them to accomplish via incarnation or reincarnation. Um, Life will play out accordingly. You know, for an example, I used to always wonder why I stayed in so much trouble, and my life seemed to be out of control, unmanageable, and I could never seem to understand why. It wasn't until I got into esoteric knowledge and metaphysical knowledge that I began to understand why. Again, within those two subjects, or schools of thought, you have what is known as occult knowledge. And don't be spooked by the word occult. It just merely means hidden. So, again, I believe with this introduction, I've given enough of a platform for one to understand that what we've been taught, how we've been taught, and what's been excluded in what we've been taught is enough for anybody of sound mind and judgment to understand that there has been a lot left to be desired. Not to mention that a lot of us today have no interest in, the usage of our time to read and research, much less contemplate, ponder, and meditate on, a lot of, if any of, the aforementioned subjects that have been mentioned thus far. However, what I was saying about, and I remember now, I lost my train of thought about, astrology and astronomy and cosmology, is that we are now in the age of Aquarius. Do your own research on what that means if you don't know. Then, as it relates to spiritual and universal law, because a lot of us, man, I've always received karma for things that I did. Sometimes it was immediate, if not soon following. So that was something that also led me to want to understand on a deeper level what the significance of my existence was. The other part of that is some people have been able to get away with the racking up of karmic debt. Any shit that you throw, you will eventually have to smell it. Another way to say that is whatever you put out will eventually find its way back to you. Why is that important? Again, this is the age of Aquarius. And one of the effects of the age of Aquarius is that justice will have to be served. Karmic debt will have to be paid. this is to whomever it may concern. If you're one of the ones that have been getting away with whatever it is that you decide to do with your free will, it's a fair assumption to make and state that you're probably under pressure right now. You're probably paying closer attention to what's being stated right now because of whatever you've been experiencing on a personal level. I believe it was on one of my last two videos. I sung a little part of the OJ's For the Love of Money. Greed, man, greed. Some of us, man, are just so overruled and controlled by our appetites, lusts, and desires that they in turn dictate our free will. If you didn't know, that is a sign of weakness. Whereas though you are solely operating out of the three lowest chakras, which is another subject matter that I did not speak on in this video. I have done previous videos dealing with chakras, and to put it short, they have a lot to do with one's state of being on a way deeper than surface level. If you're interested in understanding what I just said, then doing an extensive research on the chakras. They go as deep as the central nervous system. So, to continue on, again, as I stated, this is we are now in the age of Aquarius. So, a lot of what was done in the dark is being energetically pulled into the light. And again, you have some of us that can sense and or see or have been given a dream or a download, whether you're in a dream or in a conscious state, regarding, certain people's decisions to do X, Y, or Z. I know you've all heard that we are in a spiritual war. Some would even argue that World War III is in fact a spiritual war. One thing I want to touch on before I move on is something that I touched on in a previous video. A lot of people feel as though they're being submerged into some water or hearing about, knowing of, and making certain changes as it relates to the inner jihad that is spoken of in the religion Islam means that, either that, you've gone through some sort of a metamorphosis, and that you are now, in the proverbial safe zone. However, I beg to differ. I beg to differ because I've been those places, and for a while I was in the places in the way that I previously described, making certain surface level changes, subscribing to a certain ideology or belief. The difference with me is that, and this is how I've always been, anybody that knows me from years ago, I'm talking about whether childhood or teenage years, then you know that I'm all in or I'm all out. I don't play no games with the fence. I'm either in or I'm out. I'm all the way in or I'm all the way out. So that hasn't changed much. In fact, it's only gotten a little more defined and stronger. So anything that I'm involved in, trust me, I'm all 10 toes down in it. So when I say these things that I say to you on this video, understand, man, that when I say getting submerged in some water and or becoming aware of and having a basic understanding of what that energy had consists of, one that truly, partakes in the inner transformation of self. Only those that have walked through that process understand where I'm coming from. Depending on how jacked up you are, how jacked up your life has been, how many traumas you've been subjugated to, etc. That equal amount of depth is required, if not more, to shed the layers of the onion, as I like to term it, or to get back to a state of purity. And by state of purity, I mean getting back to the core of who you are as an individual on an innate or authentic level as possible. It requires a lot of time, attention, effort, and energy. It's even safe to say that some people aren't capable of finishing such a journey. Some people go crazy. Some people take themselves out. Some people are never the same and just can't get right. Then you have others of us who was fortunately strong enough, resilient enough to walk in as deep a shadow as necessary to complete said journey. And as a result, they're never the same. Not in a bad way, though. And don't get it twisted, none of us are perfect. I don't even think that the goal is to be perfect. I believe that the goal is just to be better today than you were yesterday as the days go on. However, back to the subject. All these things that I've mentioned thus far are basically to extend the following message. All of the secrets, all of the acts done under the shadow of the moon, all of the deception, theft, treachery, technology, outright negativity, and dark energy alike. No matter how far back it goes, if you have not received the harvest from which you've sowed, be as enthusiastic as you were when you were doing what it was you were doing. And also, anybody that feels any pressure from things done to me, all is forgiven. But it ain't me that you need to worry about. Especially if, you're not actively or ever involving yourself in activities that make me feel as though you are a threat. Because I'm not even gonna go no further with that. But just know that you're gonna have to whatever you've put on your plate, you're gonna have to eat it. And with that being stated, I'm going to digress and close this video out because this video was specifically for whomever it may concern, and I tried my best to stay on task and on subject for this video so that the intended message can be received. So, as is always, it is my hope, it was my intent that somebody, anybody, whomever, could either receive the clarity that was intended to be given, and that somebody, anybody, whomever, could extract some benefit from something that I said in this video. So with that being stated, y'all enjoy y'all's Wednesday afternoon. And as always, be safe and dangerous whenever necessary. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.